Cool.
Hey y'all, hi everybody. Hi, it's Precious and we're back again, and this time we are in St. Louis. Living Room Flows, this is episode 2, and I am so happy and so grateful to be here. I am so happy y'all are here. It's gonna be super dope. I know you excited about it, I'm excited. So today, because you should already know why you're here. Hey, if you don't know though, go back to the last video and you can find out. So this time going around, we are going to have some fabulous women talking with us. We are going to have Cami, and we are also going to have Nyara. Hey.
Hey, how's it going?
Yeah, every person I have, y'all, it's always one person in the group where I'm like, teach me your name, because you know that's a part of self-care in 2020, okay? And so now I'm remembering her name by Chris Brown, No Air. That's how I remember it. Yeah. Bet. So I'm gonna let them introduce and then we'll jump right into it. Go ahead.
Cool. Well, I am Nyara Williams. I'm a 25-year-old multidisciplinary artist and the founder of Black Dot Clothing. My work is pretty much around textile, photography, and dance to promote Blackness, education, and community.
Cool, well said.
Thank you.
Yeah. My name is Cami Thomas. I am a filmmaker based here in St. Louis. I also am a photographer, dabble in paint every once in a while when I feel like it, but primarily do documentary work showcasing Black experience, particularly the Black experience here in St. Louis following the protests surrounding Mike Brown's situation, as well as Jason Stockley. So primarily what I like to do is document the Black experience through way of a lens, whether that's in photo or video. And then from there, just kind of exploring other ways to let out my creativity while also kind of healing in this space and offering that to people in the community as well.
Okay, that was well said too, right?
Come on, healing.
Live your life, okay? That's how you know that these are professional women, because we got our 2-minute speeches down, okay?
We've been practicing.
But, you know what I mean? So I actually want to ask, because you just touched on, how has it been being a creative and being Black and then watching all the things unfold in the world with George Floyd, and then after so many other things, especially Breonna Taylor? Like, what has that looked like for you as a woman? What has that looked like for you as a creative?
There's so many layers to it. I think, just to kind of go off the jump, I would say to be an artist or a professional, an entrepreneur in any way, you have to have an inner balance so that you can know where you're working from. Mm-hmm. Are you working from a place of pain? Are you working from a place of being in love? Like, wherever you're working from will be shown in your art. So I think what's hard sometimes being Black, being a Black woman, being a Black queer woman, and then watching everything unfold is how do you really, stay on your own equilibrium when the world is trying to push you off of it.
Yes,
because you spend so much energy in feeling misunderstood, feeling, dark moments and dark emotional moments can come from this kind of stuff. So it's been hard. It's in a way that it makes me want to connect with community so much more, because that's the only thing that actually helps me feel okay. But it's tough because you want to be creating from a space of pure, exploration and pure creativity, but what is pure about this experience? You know what I mean? It's tainted with so much pain and so much trauma. So I think the hardest part is, figuring out how to separate that, and then figuring out if you even need to separate it. Like, in what ways should you lean towards it to even kind of inform your work. So, off the bat, it's tough, obviously, but I think throughout history, Black women creatives have made it work. So, we're kind of just next in line to figure out how we can do that.
Not next in line, but like front of the line. Yeah, just gonna put that out there. Okay.
Can I piggyback off of that?
Yes, please.
So I would definitely agree wholeheartedly with what she said. I think it's been a weird juxtaposition of like you said, both sides of the equilibrium, like wanting to dismantle a system, right? Working on that, and then also you're in the middle of dismantling the system, and then you're over here with self-care, and it's like, how do I keep that balance beam, here? I was recently watching Angela Davis talk about radical self-care, And I was like, what is the radical self-care? I've always heard of self-care, but not radical self-care. And she was saying during the Black Panther movement, it was really important for the organizers and things to make sure they took care of themselves first, because if you don't fill your cup up first, like how can you make sure everybody around you is well as well? So definitely have been more on the self-care side, definitely been out here dismantling the system as well, but making sure that like top priority is making sure that I'm cool so that my people are cool.
Yeah. And so, you know, the interesting thing about that too is that like during this time, even with Art in Many Forms and King P Studio, my businesses, I've found that like trying to put work out right now, it feels so like inappropriate. It's kind of like that moment of what we all been saying to J. Cole, read the room. You know what I mean? So it's kind of like what and how are you feeling about this idea of self-care versus I need to get shit done? Like, you know what I mean? Like I need to still be putting out work, but if it's not reflective of the current times, or should I say before, if it wasn't reflective of the current time, it just felt like it was inappropriate. So where were y'all on that?
It's somewhere exactly how you're saying. I think what this time has made me question is like, who are you creating for? Who are you actually doing this for, right? Because if it's purely for other eyes, then of course everything you do that's not kind of for the greater good will seem inappropriate. But if you're working from a space of, you know, what do I actually feel like creating now that it's not required of me to post something new or to do something new, because everyone's kind of on the same page, I think, of like, all right, we're gonna slow down on the selfies, we're gonna slow down on all this stuff that doesn't matter, you know, because people don't wanna add clutter to the movement. So I think it makes it so that it's like, if you're gonna make, it's because it's coming from you, and you know, because you actually need to do it or wanna do it. So it makes it so that like, it removes the pressure of needing to put out needless work or work on a timeline, because it's like, if I'm doing it, it's because I actually want to do it. If I actually want to do it, it's because I'm drawn towards it. And if I'm drawn towards it, it's probably because it's something that offers me like a reprieve of the experience and what's going on in the world right now. So it, weirdly enough, has actually been more beneficial, you know what I mean, to be able to create from a space that I don't feel like, yeah, the expectation isn't there to just put out something for the sake of it. And people want substance, you know, again, I don't know if it's again, but people do want substance if you're gonna put something out there. So it makes it so that you have to say like, you have to go within and say, okay, well, what substance do I actually have to offer? And if it's inauthentic, people will be able to tell, you know what I mean? So it makes it so that, yeah, you get to return back to yourself, which has actually been really nice.
Okay, Cami out here dropping gems.
For real, all the gems.
Okay, she just gave a whole word.
Nah,
I'm here for it.
I'm in good company.
And you?
Yeah, so like you said, she gave all the gems.
I know, relax. She did.
Let's see, what can I add to that? Pretty much what she said as far as, okay, what I've been doing recently is leaning into, similar to what she just said, leaning into what's been calling me. And so what does that look like? And that just brings in intention, right? And so what is the intention when I'm putting out this work? Or even when it comes to not slowing down and posting, like how you just said, with not knowing if you should post or whatever, because you don't want to add that clutter to what's happening right now. But I also had to realize that moments of joy and happiness and things of that nature are just as important, right? Because if we're seeing the stuff that we're seeing 24/7 on our timeline, on our feeds, we're on the internet so much. And so even right now during quarantine time, everybody's on their phone, right? So if that's all we're feeding ourselves, our energy can be depleted after that. So I realized at some points it was important to also show, you know, those moments of joy. So what does that look like for me? And then I started, you know, pushing out that work a little bit more just to balance the spectrum a little bit. But yeah, that's where I'm at with it.
So then my next question for you would be, for your brand, Black, right? And which is a clothing brand, correct?
Yes.
Right? So has it made it easier or harder during these times for you to put out like what that looks like, or those pieces, or, you know, because let's be real, it's a lot of work right now coming out talking about, you know, like I just seen a shirt while I was in Atlanta that said Black women are dope, and I was like, oh, I want that shirt. And the Black dude was like, yeah, they like $40. Ooh, why would I pay you for that when I'm Black and I'm a woman? Like, I can make it myself, right? So like, what has putting out the work for your brand look like?
Yeah, so the dope part about Black Dot Clothing, I think, is that it's not just a clothing brand, right? So we also do service events throughout the year, and then we just had to kind of pivot and put our attention on, like I said, what do we need right now? And we have different campaigns like Black Fathers Are Not Mythical Creatures and Black Queens Smile Too, and these different things that we want to push out there to the people, but also making sure that it's not too much. Right now, our focus has really just been the service events, right? And so I think that during this time and seeing what everybody needs is what we've been focusing on. So what are the needs of the people right now? And then we're putting our energy towards that. So has this time, what was your question? I'm sorry, can you repeat that?
Has this time caused y'all to want to put out more work that's like, you know, uplifting the Black voice or empowering the Black voice and things of that nature? But correctly, not crazy like some other people. Correctly.
Yeah, so we haven't put out any more like shirt designs and things like that, like wanting people to buy that, but we have like generated this channel where it's like, hey, here are a lot of resources that you can use during this time. And yeah, right now we have a book bag drive that we're doing. We know that COVID has impacted a lot of families, parents, and students. So we're like, okay, we're gonna have to adjust with the way we handle this, but we wanna still make sure things are comfortable for the students in the fall. So things of that nature is what our focus is on right now, honestly. Yeah.
I mean, it sounds wonderful.
Thank you.
Especially because with COVID and the CDC and people actually trying to figure out, well, how are we gonna do schools next year? I think that's super dope that y'all are actually like, you know, well, let's actually do something that could be helpful and impactful. Yeah, I think that's dope. So let's switch gears real quick and let's kind of jump into the fact that both of y'all are Harvard Fellows. I just want to say it like that. I don't, listen, there might be a proper way to say it. I don't care. Okay? I want y'all to kind of touch on it because I feel like there's a lot of creatives that probably actually don't know about it, especially Black women creatives that don't know about it. And what was the process in getting in? Like how long it took and all that stuff. Go ahead. Go ahead.
What was the process like? So honestly, I think in the beginning, it was more so just your network. So it was social media for me. I saw somebody, which was D. Nichols. She's a graphic designer like yourself.
Hey.
And she made a post and she was like, hey, we're looking for photographers that we want to bring on for this project. Didn't really say what it was for. I'm sure, you know, because it was a huge announcement. But they were just looking for photographers. And so she said my name was already in the hat, which I was like, yeah, you guys are like looking. But yeah, so she made that post and then sent out an email saying that this is what they were doing. And we just have to fill out the content pretty much. And so getting our portfolio together, a resume, an artist CV, all of these things also like I wasn't used to doing because I've just kind of, I wouldn't say new to like the photography stuff, but as far as like accepting clients and doing stuff on like those levels as far as a fellowship and different things like that, I'm not used to. So when it came to getting together a artist CV and different things like that, I had to learn. But I'm grateful enough to have friends around me who was used to that, and just being in the fellowship with her made it a lot easier and smoother. So definitely glad we were able to do this together.
Right,
Yeah.
Cami. Mm-hmm.
Right. No, it's funny and weird that she says it that way because I'm like so much of my work and everything I cross-reference with her even before it even goes onto my own portfolio or website or anything like that. So I think it's a joint effort like things often are with Black women and especially people here and creatives here, you know? So yeah, the process was, it was simple in the way that you have to simplify your own artistry and like, you know, you can have all these ideas and all these pictures, but when you have to kind of wrangle up everything that's floating around and hone it into one page or one PDF document, it makes you question, who am I as an artist? Like doing an artist statement, you know what I mean? Like an artist statement for this particular project, which the fellowship was mainly for, you know, for St. Louis-based photographers, just being that St. Louis has been at the forefront of so many movements and especially recent movements. And now I think that's on the larger scale is seen, but you know, here, there was a lot of groundwork that went into kind of pushing the world to where it is now. So you know, for the people who have been documenting it or create from that space, the fellowship was kind of based around, you know, a St. Louis-based project about what it means to be from St. Louis and what it means to live in St. Louis. And those are questions I feel like, I mean, we talk about St. Louis all the time and what it's like being here and growing up here, but I think to spin that in a way of like, how is my art actually even influenced by that? For this fellowship was the part that was, I learned a lot having to do that part of it, you know? So that was super new to me too, though. The artist statement, the CV, the, you know, how do you pick which pieces go where, and it makes you have to really think about, why did I take this photo, you know?
It makes you also feel like, well, I feel like it gets you to a place of that isn't professionally or formally taught, of like, you have to know how to talk about your work and you have to know how to defend your work, because if you don't, then somebody over here will literally swallow it up and eat you alive, because you don't know how to say that this thing was hella important to you. And you can't just say it. It was, you know, it was something I wanted to do. You can't just say that. Right. There needs to be, you know, the context and the feeling. And it's kind of interesting too, because when I think about it even more, so I love and I'm a strong advocate for therapy.
Yes.
Hey,
yeah.
okay.
Oh, yeah.
All right, I feel like if you are a person of color, especially if you are Black, when you come out the womb, you should just get assigned a therapist, right? Like straight from birth. And so it's kind of like a two-edged sword for me, because I think about the mental state that a person has to constantly be in to be a creative and to be an entrepreneur. And then the mental state or the spirituality you have to be an entrepreneur and to be a creative. And so you kind of already touched on it in the sense of talking about, like, my name was already being mentioned, which reminds me of my favorite scripture, that God will make room for you, right? And now it's very known, I'm not a religious person, I'm a spiritual person. Take that how you want to. Deal with your mama. So, how do you navigate your mental and your spirituality? Like, what does that look like for you when it comes to both creativity and entrepreneurship?
So recently, actually, I became a certified yoga instructor.
Okay,
and I did that during the quarantine time. But what led me to that path was literally needing that self-care, right? I was sitting in my room and all this stuff is happening, and it literally was showing up in my body, like whether that's anxiety or my asthma, and it was all flaring up. And of course, I was like, oh my gosh, is this corona? Like, what is this? Like, freaking out. But it was just like, you just literally need to calm down. And I'm like, okay, what is it that's triggering? What is, you know, what's happening here? Literally here, like my heart, sorry to the mic. But yeah, so I felt like I have friends who are yogis and who do breath work and different things like that. And so I was interested in what the healing process looked like. And so I took a class during quarantine time, and it taught me a lot about myself. And so Lily had been putting that into practice. And so as far as merging the self-care with the creative stuff, and I can let Cami talk on this a little bit more, but we recently did an event where we not only did yoga and a meditation.
Y'all was living y'all lives.
A meditation, and then a conversation about what it would look like in a world without police. So if you want to touch on that a bit more.
Yeah, no, for sure. I mean, you know, I think even to like circle back on the question overall about like spirituality and the way it relates to creativity, I think it's weird. I don't know if it's a being from St. Louis thing. I don't know if it's a Black woman thing. It's probably all of the above. But I mean, being here, you have to like adapt or die really in so many ways. And I think I was at the point probably around like 2016 or so where I was towards that like die, like when it came to spiritually or emotionally. I was really at a point where I was like, I cannot go on with like taking in everything anymore. So I was at that point, I'm like, adapt or die. And the adapting part came in the form of like stillness, quiet, and I didn't necessarily think it was like, oh, I'm going into my spirituality. I was like, I need silence, so I'm gonna lean towards silence. I need, you know, to be meditative, so I'm going to meditate. Like the kind of things came out of necessity and out of like, I need to do this to survive emotionally. And in those still moments is when you get to like figure out that like, oh, it's not just me here. At least for me, that's what it felt like. when I was alone and quiet, I felt like I'm not the only one here. That's when I could finally like hear God and like feel that God was with me and feel that my ancestors were like with me. And it felt like, yeah, a spiritual death that like kind of gave birth to a new version of me. So within that, it gave birth to a new version of my own creativity. Because again, like I was saying, like I was creating from a space that felt more pure. And even if it was informed by trauma, it was like not just spilling out my trauma. It was feeling like I had ownership of anything that's ever happened to me or towards me or around me. So yeah, I guess when it comes to the way that they relate in the way that all things, just like being a Black queer woman in the US, all those things are all together. Yeah, so it's hard to say. I'm like the creativity, the spirituality, all that came together when I decided like, yeah, adapt or die. So I'm going to turn towards this, and everything kind of like flowed within itself, I guess, you know. But as far as the event that we had, you know, when it comes to being from here, the activist work, the things we do in the city to like hopefully make a better version of the city, it takes a lot out of you. And like now that the movement has really kicked off nationally, you know, I felt like, you know, me and my friends felt like it's important to let people know you can't just go into this work or any type of work thinking that you can just go in the way that you can in any other way, or like be as productive as you can at work or wherever else. Like you have to slow down, you have to like, you know what I mean? You have to kind of center in yourself. So that's why we did that. And yeah, Nyara, which is certified for yoga, so she led the yoga session. My lovely girlfriend led the meditation session, and we you know, went from there. Right. Love my life. She led the meditation session, and it was cool to kind of like gather the people together to be in that space, because it lays a framework for more conducive, like, or an environment that's more conducive to creativity and to being able to actually build something that lasts and build something that's impactful. So I hope that answered the question, but
it answers it, but also too, because you just reminded me. So as we were talking about intersections, can we, and you know, correct me where I'm wrong, and we're not gonna mention it for so many reasons, but can you please explain how you decided to, you know, just go ahead and quit your job and then turn them into your client? Can you do that?
oh shit.
When you decided to step into entrepreneurship.
Okay, it was a,
see how she just
right.
like, what?
It was a transition, because I started my business when I was still working with my corporate job.
But was this also during 2016 or towards the end?
It was
or
2016.
Around yeah, see, we was there. I'm with you.
Yeah, it was a really good and bad year for a lot of reasons. But the version of me standing here now, or sitting, whatever I'm doing here now, like, was birthed from that year. So, but yeah, so it was slowly but surely. It's sort of like, what do I want to do? I started a blog at first. I would cover stuff in St. Louis, and then it was sort of a hobby. And then from there, I realized like, oh, there's actually like money in this, and then money in my expertise. And for me, the expertise that I gathered from my corporate jobs, you know, you can do and stumble across a lot of things on your own and learn it as you go. I will say, when you're working with $1 billion corporation and working with people who inspire you every day, who, you know, you get to learn from every day, it sharpens you. I felt like 4 years working for a corporate company felt like 15 years of trying it on my own, really the way it honed in on me. And for everyone, that's not necessarily how it is, but it was for me. And I think, yeah, working authentically, making authentic connections, and from there, weirdly enough, as we're talking about spirituality, I was in Miami with my girlfriend, and like a lot of queer couples, we're doing the distance thing, and we were on the beach, and I don't know what it was, we just were having a conversation, and we were both kind of at the point where we were done with the way things were, and I was like, something has to budge, and I'm like, it's not gonna be her. You know, I don't want it to be her. It's not gonna be my family. It's not gonna be my own passion. So the only thing left was like my corporate job. I'm like, something has to go, and it's not gonna be any of those things. And then, yeah, literally went to sleep that night, woke up from it. Yeah, I woke up from a dream that told me like, you're gonna be leaving and you need a 6-month plan. So then woke up, made a 6-month plan, and yeah, by weird circumstances, like it actually happened even quicker, about 3 months. And then I left, and I didn't necessarily plan on working with my previous employer as a client, but it just kind of happened that way, and the natural opportunities were there.
Because the networking.
Yeah, the networking and genuine bonds,
people
you know?
And the genuine bonds, and when people see your value and they actually thoroughly want to invest in it, then that's what happens. And I bring it up, I know it threw you for a loop, because I feel like a lot of women who I talk to, and a lot of people who, I guess I would say I have different experiences with, a lot of Black women especially, they want to quit their jobs, right? They want to go work for themselves, and it's like a double mindset type of thing, because there are some people who are like, well, if I quit this job, what am I gonna do next?
Right.
And then there are some people who are like, well, if I quit this job, how am I gonna make money from the thing that I was God-given to do? And so trying to figure out, well, what does that look like? I think it's important for when a person has actually did it, not saying that the way that Cami did it is the way that you should do it in your life, because that's not how this works, right? You should really, I mean, the only part that I would say a person should do that you did is make a plan. But even then, like, making a plan can only serve you so much, because the thing that most of us do not like is ambiguity, and change comes quickly, especially when you are an entrepreneur. Like, nothing goes to plan. That's why we're here, because nothing goes to plan, and then you have to figure out how to replan. And so, Nyara.
Yeah.
Hey. I feel like I'm getting better at it. Okay. So for you, because I know that you're still doing something part-time, but how does that affect you when it comes to your entrepreneurship, your mental, your spirituality, like all of it, all the intersections crossing at once? Like, how does that either keep you grounded or keep you like, I gotta get the bag because I'm trying to get it for myself?
Yeah, change and what you talk about is so, that's so important, especially as an entrepreneur, to know that things aren't gonna always be, it doesn't look linear. Like, there's not one way to do it. You always have to be used to change.
On your toes.
On your toes, for sure. The thing that, with my part-time job, I think what's dope is that, one, my boss is also my friend, and so there was an opportunity. There was a moment where I was like literally looking for more work. So I had a job, but it wasn't funding enough, right? Mm-hmm. And the kind of person I am, I've always like been an entrepreneur since like the 5th grade, honestly. Like, I was like selling light up pens in my class, stuff like that, right?
She's so, like, I'm gonna make this money.
You know, I don't know what drew me to it, but it was just like dope being able to provide something for people, and then also, you know, receiving obviously like money on the other end of that. But I think having her as a friend is what helps with all of this, because she's very understanding. So I work for an organization called Books and Bros, and they are national. Check them out. But
shameless plug.
Yeah, you know.
I love it.
But yeah, I think that's the dope thing, is the relationship that I built with them. So I do photography and video work for them, as well as also just any other kind of assistant work that they need. But having that understanding of like, I'm still an entrepreneur also, and I'm building my business and working on myself and things like that. We have like self-care days where she's like, hey, just checking in, you good like today? And I'm like, honestly, X, Y, and Z, right? Or yeah, let's get rolling, let's go. And so I think that that's very important in your relationship that you have with your, if you do have a part-time job or a corporate job or whatever, is that understanding and building a relationship. Because in other jobs, in the corporate jobs, we didn't have the understanding. Like, it was like, hey, you work for us, and we need you to do this. And I'm like, I'm trying to, you know, I'm out here trying to slang shirts, and I'm trying to do this. I ain't got time for that, you know? So yeah, I think that balance has helped me right now in my current situation with having understanding and things like that.
Yeah, and I will concur. It's super dope having a boss that is a friend, or just a boss that's completely understanding. Because I mean, this is not really a plug to anybody, but like, I keep telling kids when they graduate from any school and they're like, I want to go in Minnesota, because Minnesota has hella corporations. Like, Minnesota got too many corporations when you really look. But I keep telling people, you know, go work for Best Buy, because my boss at Best Buy, Denton Warren, was like, he was just God sent. Cause like, I get horrible, like, is the word debilitating? Like, just horrible migraines that end up having me be like, okay, y'all, I'm done for the day. And so he would be like, oh, bet, word, go home. And it would be like 10 a.m. I'd be like, what? He'd be like, yeah, go home, bye, see you later. As long as the project's done, I don't care, go home. And it just, like, I never, ever, in all the jobs I've had, I've never had a boss that cared enough to be like, no, go take care of yourself. You know what I mean? And it's kind of interesting too, once again, because it's like learning as an entrepreneur to take care of yourself. Let's talk about it. Because even though we've been touching on it, no one really, and maybe it's just me because I'm an overachiever, but like no one really teaches you how to have off days. No one, and I think that was the reason why a lot of people had a problem with COVID, is because it forced you into off days. Okay, you couldn't get up and do anything. Like, I took 3 months off and was like, oh, God, wow. I don't think I ever want to do that again. But like, how do you, when you get caught up in like the running of the doing the different things, and especially you too, Cami, because I see it. I see you.
She was
right?
doing her thing.
Yeah. No, I know she be doing her thing, but I know like I'm more than sure you get caught up in the moments of I got to do this and I got to do that and I got the checklist and let me okay.
Do you talk to my girlfriend or something?
No.
You got the down low on me.
I see, and it might sound super selfish, but like when you recognize yourself in a person, it's like, oh, okay, that's who we are. Okay, hi friend.
Okay.
So how are you starting to learn to navigate that, to be like, okay, I have these projects due, but I also, like, I am feeling anxious today. So today is an off day.
It's a what day?
Off day.
What's that?
I know, but like
Yeah, no, I got you. Yeah, it's tough, really, and I know we keep working off of each other a lot, but like,
okay.
Yeah, Nyara, my friends, my girlfriend especially, helped me to do that, because my typical way of being and operating was like go until I crash and burn or burn out, I guess, but
that's the motto.
And I had to, just like you said,
Right.
even with therapy, is I had to learn how to recognize, like, okay, it's different for everyone, but what are the signs that I am approaching burnout? You know what I mean? Because it got worse and worse. It's kind of like when you're a kid, you can fall off a skateboard and it's fine, but then when we get to your late 20s, it's like it's a little less fine, and then you're in your 40s, and then you'll break a hip, so it's like the more time goes by, the more things affect you. So burnout used to be whatever, I'll sleep for a day because now I feel stressed out, but I'm good to go. But I could no longer do that, especially after Corona. Like, it's made it so that I can't recover that same way. So I've had to rethink the way I do anything. And, I'm still working on having straight up off days, I'll work towards that. And I have them, but they're not very frequent, or they're not my choice to have. But I think, even just this week, I was feeling really I couldn't focus. I also have ADHD, so that adds a lot into it. But I was sitting down and I was like, I have so much stuff to do, and yet I cannot focus on anything. I felt like moving, and I was asking my girlfriend, like, should I go on a run, or is that just procrastinating, or what do I do? But for me, it's like, if you're a recovering workaholic, is to take the moments, because a day, even as you say that, sounds stressful to me, because I'm like, I can enjoy it in the moment, but then it feels like I pay for it the next day.
I know
you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So instead, for me, where I'm at right now is carving out the time. If I'm gonna go for a run, I'm like, I'm gonna go for a run. If I just wanna walk outside and feel the sun and it's 10 minutes, because I'm like, those 10 minutes, those 15 minutes add up to where I look back and I'm like, I had several hours of me time today, and it helps. It's very helpful, but I'm still working out that balance. I think being in the corporate world, it gives you a structure, and it tells you you're gonna be here from this time to this time. I worked in like music production and event production, so that was a little bit different. Our hours were different, but there was still this built-in structure, even of kind of rest time. So when you're an entrepreneur, there's no one size fits all. There's books, there's articles that'll tell you, if you start your day this time, do this, do that, and it's like, it'll work for a little bit, but it's not applicable to real life, and it doesn't account for the unpredictable. It doesn't account for the way you might feel that day. It doesn't account for the random things, the random needs that are gonna be tugging at, it's something you have to just learn and practice, So I'm still learning. Yeah, again, my girlfriend's a big help. My friends are a big help. Nyara especially is a really big help, when it comes to my friends who can help me do that. But I'm still working on it for sure. I'm
That
getting
Pisces
there.
energy.
It might be.
That's what
Like
they
a
give
flow,
us,
we
earth
just
signs.
Right.
That's what they give us.
Friends.
How many of us have those? Okay.
Literally though, like with everything going on, I was similar to wanting to just like keep going. I'm like, yeah, the world has stopped. This is time for me to catch up, right? And that did not help me at all, right? I was like doing 10 million things at once. I'm like, oh, now I can finally work on like doing graphic stuff, or let me do more photography. Let me do more of this, more. And my body was literally like, you need to rest. And some days, it was just like I felt like I couldn't focus, or it just felt weird. I'm just like, I don't know why my attention span isn't there, right? What is this? And so I would tell friends like who would check in and like, hey, how's it going today? And I'm like, I don't know, I'm in a weird space. And they're like, have you taken time for yourself? And I'm like, what does that look like? I've been just working a lot. And so, this time literally, like, and my body literally forced me to slow down. And I also had to understand what rest actually looks like. It's not just sleeping, right? Maybe that's just getting up an hour early and just laying there in your bed and being with yourself, right? And so I had to learn how to take time for myself before I put my energy elsewhere. It goes back to that radical self-care, right? Mm-hmm. And so that's pretty much, all of this forced me to rest.
Yeah. And the interesting thing about it too is, so I love that word today, clearly. So the thing for me is that like I was trying to rush my self-care. Right? Because like, and me and my therapist, we just had this conversation. So before Corona, I would have what I call grooming days. Okay? Grooming days are essential. Grooming days.
Like hair day, hair wash day kind of
No,
stuff?
No, honey. Grooming day is all the things. Okay? So we gonna get the haircut. Don't be fooled. Okay? We gonna get the haircut. We gonna get the nails did. We gonna get the feet did. Go get a wax if I want to go get a wax. I'm gonna go and have a massage. I'm going to go have a dinner somewhere that I wanted to find or some stuff. Mm-hmm. Like I would do all of that in one day, and then the rest of the week I'm working. And so like before Corona, that was fine. But during Corona, that was like, first of all, nothing is open. So you can't even go anywhere. And so like trying to find self-care in other ways, like one thing that is very big for me, and I know it pisses a lot of people off, whatever, is that my phone, both of them live on do not disturb. It needs to be a dire need for whatever the reason is that my phone isn't on D&D, right? And so little things like that. And so when we had this conversation recently, she was like, the advice she had given me was, don't plan it all out for one day. Plan it out, as you said, for moments throughout the week. Because then you can actually reflect back and be like, no, I spent that hour doing this. I spent that half day doing this. And it makes you feel a little bit more full on the inside versus I just did all this work, which is also exhilarating because I like checking off my checklist.
Right?
Like,
yeah.
At the end of the day, nothing makes me more happy than a check in a checklist. Like,
right.
I'm happy and I'm satisfied, but that's not always helpful, nor is it productive to me. So let's jump into the simple things of love and how that actually, because we actually talked about this in LA, and how good love can really inspire you as an entrepreneur, as a creative, and how bad love can inspire you as an entrepreneur and as a creative. Mm-hmm. And how that also either helps or affects the relationship of you being an entrepreneur, like how the relationship affects you.
Yeah.
And Nyara, you too, if you live in this life.
Yeah.
Yeah. Boy, oh boy. What a topic. Yeah, no, love, like it should be probably for everyone, for me in my life, is such a strong topic because I've experienced very, very deep, good love from my girlfriend, from my friends, from my family, and I've experienced very, very harmful love, or even if that is love, I'm not sure, but the way it affects you is the way you can even function in the world, the way you feel about yourself, the way you feel about your work, can transform based off of whatever it is, romantic or otherwise. If there's anyone around who might be feeding anything, negativity into you, or kind of, ourselves, we splinter in half, like we're chipped away at any comment, at anything. We're very, very sensitive beings, humans. Like, we're very rigid and like rugged and strong, and then we have things, our Achilles heels emotionally can destroy us for years, really. So it's so important, like it's so important to have good, powerful, pure love, and I think that's something you can experience if, everyone's doing the work necessary to check in on themselves, because we're all, we're not finished products, but at the same time, it's like, if I think of the most harm ever done to me by anyone that I think has loved me, or that I've loved, it's been that, like, not everyone's doing the work to make sure that they're okay, in whatever that means for them.
Not taking care of their trauma.
Whatever it is for them, their trauma, it could be mental health, it could be emotional health, it could be, I think even being with someone who's working towards their own dreams, who's satisfied with where they are in life and where they're going in life, things like that all come into play about how, into like how they treat you. So, to answer your actual question, it's like, I think, good love, bad love, love is love, and love impacts you and pours into you. So I think in my life, as I've said, 2016-ish, experiencing like, really that like do or die moment for myself. Mm-hmm. Some of that was everything going on in the city. There was family stuff going on, but I think, and a lot of people know this because it was somewhat public here in St. Louis, I guess, is like, a big part of that was, the relationship I was in and kind of the damage it did to me throughout the course of a few years. So a lot of that, me getting to my breaking point and having a breakthrough spiritually, was because of that. So I think sometimes we talk about who we are and what we've become, like, despite someone, when I think a lot of what we are and who we are is thanks to someone, due to someone, and owing them in a way that, regardless of if it's bad love or good love, mm-hmm. If you let it pour into you in the way it's supposed to, the way any love is supposed to, like, it'll end up transforming you regardless. So, I think good love, bad love, it doesn't matter in the sense of like who you are and what you become is up to you at the end of the day. Like the way you manage a situation, the way you manage, anything is kind of up to you of like where you want to take that and where you want to build from. So if that answers your question, I'm not sure, but I've experienced,
and the lessons that it teach you that come with love and what you think and then you get a little bit smarter and a little bit older, and then it real quick.
It's like the more you think the more you realize that you don't.
Oh my gosh. That beautiful word someone recently said, if anything, Corona taught us that we all need to unlearn some things, right? And so unlearning has literally been the word of the year. Definitely.
I like to say that, like, when people say, oh, that was an L or whatever, whether it was relationships or projects or whatever, I'm like, I don't take L's, I take lessons. Cool. And so I think that, everything is a lesson at the end of the day.
Right.
Yeah. How do you feel about love, navigating, and entrepreneurship? Okay, you saw
I think it's interesting how your relationships can affect your work. And that's, like she said, any kind of relationship, pretty much. What does your relationship look like with your mom or dad, or with your partner, or your siblings, right? Whatever mental state that you are in can sometimes project in your work, and sometimes that can be good or bad. Like if you're going through a breakup and it's like, oh, I'm about to flex 10 times harder and level up on everybody, right?
Let me step on these hoes. All right, go ahead, like, be great.
For real though. But even when you're like in love too, I think that especially if your partner is also maybe a artist or entrepreneur or whatever, they have the same ambition as you, it can definitely level up 10 times more than what you're doing on your own. So a healthy partnership, I think, can be very valuable to a creative at the end of the day.
And I'm kind of happy you talked about that, because it leads me into a segue when we're talking about relationships. And so how many years have both of y'all been in y'all professions? Because I'm gonna ask a very specific question.
I guess 5.
Go ahead, live your life.
Yeah.
Mine has, I don't even know. I feel like I want to say, I had to go to my Instagram. I was like, when did I say I was this or that? And I want to say like a year and a half or 2 ago, honestly.
Enough time for me.
Of like actually stepping into my callings or whatever.
So I asked this question to the last panel, and this is the one question that like, because I really love to hear everybody's different answers, right? Is how do you navigate people who really just want to ride your wave? Or how do you navigate people who they want to have relationship with you that is really just beneficial for them? Mm-hmm. Like it's a one-sided ordeal. Like, have you gotten there yet? Have you dealt with that yet? What does that look like?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I've dealt with it in different ways. I think even back to kind of with love though, when you know what genuine love and support and like authentic support and love looks like, you know, for me, from my girlfriend where I experience it the most, from my friends, you know what feels real and what feels good, and you can feel the difference, you know what I mean? Like you know when someone's being real with you and when someone just kind of wants to ride with what they're going with. So when you have something to compare it to, the difference, you can recognize it very soon if you pay attention to yourself and like the way someone's interaction with you makes you feel. It'll make it so that you have a barrier around yourself a little bit, and that someone else can't ride the wave if you like knock them off the surfboard and say like, nah, like I've got who I need here, you know what I mean? And not on like some no new friends kind of stuff, but like on the way of you know, what are we offering each other? Does this feel good? Does it feel authentic in the same way you would go about a relationship? When it comes to partnerships or even friendships, you know, you can tell when someone has something to offer and pour into you and vice versa, because it feels, after the interaction, you feel like both of your cups are full. So the way you get around that is you don't let it happen. You know, you don't have to respond to text. You can turn your phone on Do Not Disturb. I say always be polite and navigate well, you know what I mean? Like don't be rude to people, don't blue people off. You know, I mean,
there yet.
It depends, you know. I think, you know, and you're from Minneapolis, or you know, you're in Minneapolis, we're in St. Louis, like there's still a level of respect that needs to be in every interaction, but it doesn't need to go beyond what you want it to. If you're like, all right, we're gonna have a friendly rapport, but beyond that, I don't wanna do more work, I don't wanna do whatever, like you simply don't respond. You don't have to engage if you think that somebody is like trying to take from you what you've worked for, you know. At least that's the way I kind of navigate it. I don't know.
That's a beautiful way to look at it. That's the professional way.
It's the corporate stuff pouring into it a little bit, probably.
It's okay.
You know,
for it.
You don't burn down bridges, but at the same time, it's like you can walk over different bridges.
But see, see, because there's this saying that I thought this Minneapolis studio came up with, and then I realized it was universal, that goes, may the bridges I burn light the way.
Oh, yeah.
And that's my shit. Because I'm like, oh, okay, cool. Like, you can't, my thing is, there are some people, like, you should always be polite. Right. Because no matter what people say, as an entrepreneur, reputation is important. Like, how people know you and why people choose to interact with you is important. And so if you have a reputation of being a person who's unreliable or doesn't show up or always has an attitude, no one wants to work with you, right? But if you are a person who's always very upfront and very genuine, and like your integrity and your heart speaks for you, then it's not really that surprising when you have certain interactions and they go left. And it's like you handled that how you knew best how to. Because me personally, I just don't.
Whatever works.
I think as you build on this ladder to success or opportunity or growth or what have you, discernment is very important. Okay. And grew up in the church a little bit, so I learned that word there.
Because I'm like, that's where that word came from.
Yeah. But you have to have a certain level of discernment. And when having these interactions, and the kind of person that I am, I'm Pisces, but I like, shout out to all the Pisces.
Don't be shouting y'all out.
But yeah, like the kind of person I am, I'm mad friendly and open and welcoming, right? And so a lot of people may see me climbing this ladder and they're like, oh, she's such a friendly person, blah, blah. I can just latch on to that, right? And at some point I had to learn boundaries, and I don't think I had, a certain level of boundaries before. And so after having through experience, after having different interactions with people, you learn what your boundaries are. And so that can only happen through those experiences. So, yeah.
Boundaries are very important. And that is also a part of self-care, entrepreneurship. It's a part of every single part of life. And I think I need a different word, okay? I think it is a beautiful, healthy thing, because when you set boundaries at the beginning to let people know who you are, they are not surprised about the interactions that they have with you. You know what I mean? Like I was listening to Eric Thomas talk one day, and he was actually going over, I don't know if y'all have ever taken a DISC test. No. It's very interesting. It's the personality quiz, okay. But it's the professional personality quiz that tells you.
Oh, like INJE or whatever.
DISC.
Yes, okay.
DISC,
right,
and so
right.
you can figure out if you're a hard I or a hard D, or if you're whatever. And so he was talking to this crowd about, like, if you've always been a D, and the people you associate with have never known for you to be an I, if you come in acting like an I, and once again, this is the DISC assessment test, so you can go find. D stands for dominant. I is like, I don't know. But I remember D because I had to take this for a fellowship, and that's exactly, like, I was a hard D, and I was like, oh, well, whatever, live your life. And so it's just interesting. But like, I also let people know how to interact with me, right? Because I'm a super bubbly and fun person, but I'm also still me. Like, I'm a 5'1" little woman who still, when I'm angry, I become 6'5" and I'm fucking, nice. You know what I mean? So like,
energy.
You know what I mean? And that's because along with her Pisces sun, she's a Capricorn moon. Okay. So we had that conversation. But it's really like letting people know, and having those boundaries are also super, super helpful when it comes to talking about entrepreneurship. So last thing really that I would really go in about at the moment, we've talked so much about intersections and the different intersections, and we are all clearly Black women who are creatives and just all the things, okay? Can we please talk about being a Black woman who is creative, who is an entrepreneur, who is also a queer Black woman, who is all of these things, and how you see the world reflecting on you, or how you see people reflecting on you when you're doing your work, or like if you even take notice to it, because I don't take notice at all. Like,
That's a good question.
I think right now I'm still navigating what that space looks like. I think that education is important and representation is important. Mm-hmm. So to be a Black woman who's creative and also queer, to let folks know that like you can be just like this and still thrive and be
you want to be.
All the things like you said, right? Is super important to show. So yeah.
Right. Yeah. It's like I don't notice it in the way of like I went to Pittsburgh once and I did a screening of this documentary series that I did, and a woman came to me, a white queer woman, came to me afterwards and was like, hey, you did a great job. However, and really had a bone to pick with me, was like, I noticed from your social media stuff that you're queer, you're gay, but you didn't mention it at all in your series, or you didn't mention whatever, and like explain yourself essentially was kind of what it was framed up as, right? And I'm like, anything I create is Black gay art because I'm a Black gay woman. Like that is what it is, in the sense of like, that is the way I navigate the world. It's not, when people are like, oh, we don't talk politics, like our existence is political, you know what I'm saying?
Pause, because you know what's so interesting about that, and I try to say his name correctly, Kehinde Wiley.
Yeah.
Right? And that's why I like people like him, because of the simple fact, just because I'm Black. So I went to Minneapolis College of Art and Design. Mm-hmm. It's a very well-known art school, period, right? But, and someone had pointed this out, why is it that when it's someone else besides a white person, I have to give it all these labels.
Right, that's true.
You know what I'm saying? Like when it's a white woman who's gay, who makes a documentary, it's just a documentary.
Right.
But when it's a black woman who is queer or whatever doing a documentary, then it's all the labels.
Right.
Like, fam.
I think it's because we're dehumanized in our existence, and when you don't see someone as human, you have to see it as something else. So the something else becomes all these labels that they like make us embody. So to me, if I say this is black gay art because I'm black and gay, I'm like, you know, my documentary series was specifically about racism and growing up in a segregated city. I'm like, I'm gonna mention what I feel like mentioning. If you want me to mention something else, you can go make something on your own. Like, this doesn't have to be a group project. I'm gonna do what I wanna do. Like, it's my art. And I didn't leave the corporate world to be told what I need to create and what I need to do. So that's kind of like the way I felt about it. I didn't say it like that though, you know. But
I mean, you could have.
I know. I was just like,
we would have been right behind you.
Yeah. Right. I appreciate it. But yeah, I think even just in the whatever, at the end of the day, and just like what Nyara was saying, is like, anything I do, just in living and existing freely the way I do, you know, being able to go out with my girlfriend, just being me, being black, being queer, and being happy in that is something that I'm like, that alone is the only thing I want to show, because I feel like a lot of a lot of queer women in general, like, our first loves, or if not first loves, our most like, you know, just detrimental, powerful things that change us forever, like love through suffering or love through being taken advantage of, or like we have to like graduate through painful love to like have a breakthrough of something healthy. And that's something that I think queer people go through, and I think it's something that black women are taught, is that you have to suffer to be loved, you know?
Oh, yeah.
It's in pop culture, it's everywhere. Gay women are told the same thing because there's this confusion and secrecy around it, so that you have to suffer in silence. And I think that's something I did. I think it's almost like a rite of passage that I'd like to get through and rid our experience of that. So, you know, in navigating the world, I just want to be able to, if there's anybody watching, there might not be anybody watching at all, but if there is just one person seeing like, I'm queer, I wonder what that could look like. I want to be able to show just through existing and creating that, like, it can look like good, it can look like joy, it can look like pure, it can look like showing each other love. It doesn't have to look like pain, you know? So that's the only thing that informs the work at all, is in a way I'm like, even if I'm kind of private as I am, I'm like, I'm going to be loud enough about this that people know and can't separate me from my own gayness, because you can't separate me from something I'm refusing to be separated from me. But at the same time, if someone is watching and they're looking for like, how do I navigate as a queer black woman? It's like, in a way that you feel supported and loved, and anything less than that you need to reject, because I don't think enough of us are taught like it's okay to reject that, you know what I mean? So
it's okay to tell people you got me fucked up, is what you just said.
Yeah, but you have to know that it is. You have to know in yourself that it is. I feel like we almost, I don't know, when things are so done hush hush, it's like we have to suffer in silence. And
I agree.
You know, yeah.
And it's also too, like, to add to all of that, it's important for people to understand, just because I am a black woman who dates another woman, or whoever I choose to date, it doesn't take away from my knowledge of what I know about my job. Like, at the end of the day, if you see a person who can do the job in 5 minutes because they've been doing it for 30 years,
right.
That's how I feel like a lot of black women, especially, because we always overcompensate for trying to be the best at it, so that way no one can question our intentions.
Yeah.
So we go and learn everything we need to, versus the person over here who's like, yeah, I only learned like 2 weeks of this, and I'm like a professional, right? And so it's like, for us, it's as simple as, don't take away any of my knowledge, because I will learn you under a bus, okay? And like, just completely like change your world. And I think that's really important to name, because people don't always do that. Like, people don't always give you the credit that you are rightfully owed. Right. And it's not about someone owing you personally, it's just, don't come at me left because of these things that you see about me that you think, oh, well, then that's who you are. No, never judge a book by its cover, pretty much.
Right.
You know what I mean? And I think it's, like I said, I ain't there yet. I'm still cursing people out, whatever.
I could probably take a little bit more of that. You know what I mean?
You know,
we can balance each other out in that regard,
you know, I'm here for it.
Right.
Because my thing, honestly, is like I hear so many women. Part of the reason why I made Art in Many Forms is because I hear so many women talk about how like they really want to go into business for themselves, but they have all these different barriers. If it's not their mental health, then it's their spirituality. If it's not their spirituality, then for some women it is their sexuality. If it's not that, it's just all these different things. And I remember way back in 2017, I seen this quote that I have kept with me, which is, I want the same confidence as a mediocre white man, right? Because when I left MCAD, like someone had graduated a year before me, and I've been designing since I was 11, right? I had my first actual design client at 16 doing club flyers for a 21 plus club.
Wow.
Like actually doing this shit, right?
Yeah.
And I chose to get my associates in web design because I was one of those MySpace kids, so
Yes.
keep coding. And then I chose to get my bachelor's because I didn't want anyone to question my credentials. All of that work. And the year before me, this guy had graduated, I won't say his name. And a year later, when I had graduated and finished at MCAD, he and I were talking and I was telling him about a project I had finished. So I was like, yeah, I had spent about 50 hours on the project and I got paid about $6,000, right? So he was like, what? Like instantly, he was just like, what? 60 hours, what? And he just boldly was like, half of the time that you did, I made the same amount of money.
Wow.
And I was just like, what?
What did you gain from this?
Like, and I'm not coming at this person. I mean, I'm not saying their name, but like, this person isn't as talented. And I know that I have a niche, and I know that people come and find me for my niche. And to hear someone who's not as talented, has not put in as many years, and literally don't network as fucking hard, say, I did 30 hours and got paid the same amount, it was so disheartening. And it just made me feel like in that moment, as I raised my prices, but not nobody ever asked me why.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like all of that, and so just bringing it back to the experience of when I hear Black women talk about all the reasons why they can't start, I just feel like someone has got to let y'all know, like this, you can get paid for what you do, and you can kill it and be well off and still have all your benefits. You can go get your own IRA. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I get excited about this conversation.
Good, yeah.
Because it's just like where there's no real place for Black women to really come together and congregate and talk about, why'd you start? You know what I mean? Like, that place doesn't truly exist.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean,
think it's good.
No, you go.
No, I was gonna say I think it's dope that you did get so excited on like remembering your why. And I tell people that all the time when starting, like because entrepreneurship can like you may feel defeated sometimes. You may feel like high on the mountain, you know, like you got all these orders or something's coming in, right? And then you have your low moments where like you may not be having any clients or like any work or whatever, you feel defeated. Go back to your why. And that'll always bring you back to the center. And I think that that's super important. So to see you light up like that, it's like, hi.
I get so excited.
Yeah, it's super important.
Yeah.
No, it is. And that's so, it is disheartening sometimes, I think, you know, knowing that someone who, less talent, less whatever. I think, so I went to private school here in St. Louis where, you know, there was one Black guy who graduated in our class, 5 Black women, everyone else was white. So a lot of, and white and wealthy, very, very wealthy here in St. Louis, like wealth that I hadn't heard of before I got to that school. So I grew used to it, being in class with people that we were talking or having discussions, and you know, I would feel like we're either at the same level or in some ways I might be a little bit more well-read than you in certain areas, whatever. But then when it came down to it, these are the same kids at Harvard, at Yale, at Princeton. So I was taught very young that I'm like, okay, like there is no, these ranks are kind of arbitrary. Like when it comes to the work and the knowledge, you know, I can go tit for tat with these people, whoever these people are. So then even in navigating throughout life, whether it's fighting for a salary if you are working in a corporate world, or if it's going towards entrepreneurship, I think if you know your own worth, you know, I don't really care if somebody questions my worth, because I'm like, well, this is my price and that's what it is. Or, you know, within yourself, I don't want to operate in a space where I'm like begging for somebody else to validate me when it comes to what I should be paid and what I shouldn't be paid. So it's disheartening in some ways, and in other ways, I wish too that there was a place where Black women could just get together and be like, how much are you charging for this? How much are you charging for this? How well read are you on this? And that's why I love my friends, because we can ask each other those kind of questions. I remember I did a shoot for like $300, and I told Nyara, she's like, you do that for $300? Like, what? Don't ever do that again. And I never will, you know? So stuff like that, of people to keep up leveling you, because just like when it comes to our own liberation, it's like, what is it? Asada Shakur said, like, no one's gained their freedom by appealing to the moral sense of the oppressors. I'm not gonna appeal to the moral sense or the, you know, whatever measuring sense of someone who doesn't see my worth, because it's not really about what they see, it's about what we see and what we know we're capable of. And I don't care what they think. And, you know, yeah, if they're not gonna pay me what I wanna be paid, then it's whatever. But as far as letting people know that that's possible, that's what even you having something like this for is so important, because you're like, you know, you wish there was a space to congregate, but it's like, we're congregating, and then you're gonna put this online, which forms this other congregation that has no walls and no barriers.
Yeah, and then we just keep going.
Right, yeah, exactly. So it's like, if we're congregating and as if every other Black woman is in the room with us, it's like, you can get paid well, you can get paid as much as your corporate job is paying you. You might have low moments. When I first started, I went into entrepreneurship, I had some clients, but yeah, I was like driving Lyft for like a month at a point. And that's like, not even to be like, that's the low, but I'm like, I'd only been paid this corporate dollar, and then all of a sudden I'm like, I have to learn and hustle and work, you know what I mean? And like do something different. But it's like, within a year's time, I felt good and secure, and yeah, back to kind of where I was. And it's like, it is possible, it's more than possible. And yeah, that's just a year in. I would like to be tripling what I was making at my corporate job, and I sense that I'll get there. Just like, yeah, all of us are going to if we're not already there. So yeah, for any other Black girls who are like, oh, can I do it? Will I make as much? Absolutely.
Yeah,
they're paying us, like I think it'll show you too, like there's no limit to what you can make. There's no limit to the freedom you can have. Like when you're working for yourself, when you get to that point, like the limits aren't there. You don't have to work into this, oh, salary negotiation, this, like it's, if I want to work this hard and pivot in this direction, all of it is there for us to, like, it's all for the taking, you know?
Yeah.
And we should take it, like.
And you know, two things I'll say. The first thing I'll say as a reminder to folks is that validation is for parking, not for people.
Nice.
And the second thing I'll say is Kevin Hart, one of his favorite quotes, one of the most favorite things he loves to say is, you know, there's enough money for everybody.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? People are really boasting back in Minneapolis right now, because there was a walkout at a creative agency that I actually used to work at. And so people are like, oh my gosh, we should talk about it. And I'm like, no, I don't want to talk about it. I'm not interested, because, you know, you have damn near 200 employees and only 3 of them are Black.
No.
Yeah, I don't want to talk about you. But the interesting thing was, goddamn word. So the other part of it is that, like, I remember I did an internship for them, and I remember towards the end of the internship, they like treated it like Shark Tank. And years before they didn't do that, but I guess this year particularly they chose to do that. And so they had offered everybody the same amount of salary. And a lot of people were like, they just took it because they were either fresh out of college, or there was one girl, this was her 6th internship out of college, and she was kind of just like, I'm over it, like, whatever. And so they had offered, I mean, I'll say it, they had offered $40K starting as a junior designer. And yeah, see, we're the same person, because I was like, I can go make that on my own. Like, fam, and it's not even being arrogant or anything of that nature, because I think we also need to normalize, just because you're starting does not mean you need to lowball yourself, right? Just because you just started doesn't mean you need to be charged at $25 an hour when you know it's a $125 hour project. You know what I mean? Like, so it was just interesting, because I was like, I'm not staying here, and I think anyone who chooses to, like, I'm not questioning you as a person because you might not know your ability yet, but when you get to know your ability, I would hope you be like, stop playing with me and give me my money. Right? And so, yeah, my first year out, I definitely made that. And I was like, y'all, I wouldn't dare go work for a place that, like, you don't see my value. And I can tell you don't see my value. Right. And when we get to talking about benefits, it's like, you can get benefits many ways. And that's just how I feel about that, because there's so much in the world that is there for you to have, to be able to do the thing on your own.
Right.
So, because we grabbing air, what we doing? Okay, so to wrap it up though, because I know we've been going. What do you, and we've kind of already started to talk about it, but what would you really say to inspire someone who really does want to start, and they either do have a corporate job right now and it's paying them a pretty number, or they simply are just like, I'm new to this, where do I go? Like, what do I do? What is your words of encouragement?
Words of encouragement. I would say to save up more than I did. If you were in that position, I
ain't saved nothing.
I was gonna say I didn't either. And you know what? It worked out for me just fine. It did. But also, and I think it's humbling and maybe even necessary to have those moments where you're like, how am I gonna pay this thing? What's gonna happen? Because I think it reinstates this hustle mentality. Because if you are coming from a corporate job, whether you realize it or not, you have this intense comfort around you of like, it's like I did not think about money because it did not matter. I knew on a 2-week cycle I was going to be replenished beyond what I could spend. So there's this part of you, even if you think, oh, I know how to hustle, that panic mode of like, how am I going to pay this thing? How am I going to pay for this? How am I going to eat? Like, for me, got there because I did not put aside enough money, honestly, to start. So that's my kind of like, angel on my shoulder advice of saying like, it does not hurt to have a little bit saved up. It does not hurt to have a little bit like that. But at the same time, I'd say overall, you just have to do. There's a certain amount of planning, but don't overplan, I'm very, and my girlfriend, she can attest more than anyone, but I very much am like, I get very frustrated with the planners and the and I wrote everything down on a dry erase board and I did this. I read a book that said do this and blah, 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 blah. It's like, it does not matter until you're doing it. That you do not get credit for the plans you have in your head. You don't get credit for the stuff that you have imagined. And it's not like about getting credit from anyone else, but at the end of the day, it's like deliver or don't. Like if it's not tangible and can't be put on that table of what you've been doing or what you've done, then I don't want to hear about the I'm going to. Like I simply don't. So you have to put that same pressure on yourself that I'm gonna leave one day and I'm gonna do this and do that. It's like, just go ahead and do it. Because, for me, I even thought, oh, am I ready? And now when I left, I wondered, did I leave soon enough? I almost felt behind when I left. I'm like, oh, I'm late 20s, and I just started like not working corporate, you know what I mean? So I'm just like, just do it, just start, just be able to say like, these 2 weeks I did this thing, this month I did this thing, like just start building up the stuff that you've actually done, and just start, have a plan, write it out, check it out, get a second opinion, get a third opinion, get a fourth opinion, pray on it, meditate on it, whatever you need to do. But then from there, you have to release it. You can't just, it's like having a car in front of you and you have the key in your hand and you're just like twirling it in your hand to see how it feels. And you're like, oh, the metal is good, but you're not actually starting the car and driving anywhere. Like, you gotta drive somewhere.
That was a really good analogy.
Oh, thank you. I like cars. But anyway, that'd be my advice. Just get it done, start it, whatever that looks like. It will feel really good to be able to look back and say, yeah, no matter what, no one can take from you what you've done and what you've accomplished, even if it's like a really small thing. And it's addictive. It feels really good. And it'll feel way better than a good progress report from a boss or whatever. It'll feel way better.
That's why we got checklists.
Right. Oh, I love a good checklist.
That's why we got checklists.
Got you.
That was good. That was great.
I know. She came with the gems.
All the gems.
I'm grabbing. I saw Nyara's notebook. You know, the notes she made before we walked in, I just read them all.
Oh, yeah.
That's what happened.
Let's see, how can I sum this up? Yeah, don't be afraid to start. And I think that going back to that why, whenever you do feel like, oh, I want to run back to this, you know, where I was, or I want to do this or do that, just hold on to your why, because that'll keep you going. You don't have to be a struggling artist. Similar to what you just said, as far as like charging your worth and knowing your value, you don't have to get out here and be like, oh, I'm fresh, I'm new, so I'm only gonna charge like $50 an hour, knowing that your photography or whatever can go for $1,000, honestly, right? So you don't have to be a struggling artist as soon as you decide to leave your career or start that new venture journey.
Here, let me, because I want to piggyback, I got you. So let us, first of all, please remember, always remember that God will make room for you wherever you are in your journey. Like, as long as you putting yourself out there, God will always put the extra foot in front of you to literally make the pathway for you. Like, half of everything that I do now, it's off of the fact that, like, it's just me and God, and we just be having some dope conversations. And I call God my big homie, because he is, okay? And so, just don't forget that. Don't even question that, right? The second thing I would say is, when it comes to financials, you don't have to question your worth, but also be mindful when you get out here, it's not gonna be peaches and cream. Like, the struggle is the best part. It's horrible when you're in it.
Right.
You're like, wait, whoa.
Once you can pull yourself out though, it's like,
Yeah, but when you in it, and then you realize, because once you find your rhythm on how you do things, like especially going from corporate of getting paid every 2 weeks to getting comfortable with paying yourself once a month, because you know you got it like that now, and you can save money, pay your taxes, whatever it looks like. That's really important. And the last thing I would really say is, just, you don't have to be ready. You don't have to be ready. You just have to know that it's time, if that makes sense.
Wow.
Yeah. Like, you don't have to be ready to jump out of a plane. But if you already in the plane with your parachute on, you might want to go ahead and get on out, okay? Because what else are you going to do besides come back down? So, you know what I'm saying? Be in that space of, I'm just going to do this anyway, because the worst thing that can happen is that it all falls apart, and then you can go back to your regular job.
Right.
That job that you already hate and don't want to be at. So, I mean.
And the best part about failure is that growth comes after it. So when you
fail forward.
Yes.
Yeah. Man, listen. Yeah. This has been dope. This has been super dope. I'm really happy that I had both Nyara. Ooh, I feel so comfortable saying it. Hey. Y'all don't even know. And Cami, thank you both.
Of course.
Y'all are dope. Them coming, y'all, I be networking. Right. Me and Cami had a conversation. We were possibly going to collaborate to originally do art in mini forms. And so the fact that, like, I just told her I was coming to St. Louis and would she be a speaker, and she was like, shit, let's do it. I'm thoroughly appreciative of that, and I just thank you both for coming.
Thanks for coming to St. Louis. It's a good city. Like,
I mean, I could come back, and this time come to St. Louis and not Kansas City.
Yeah.
There's nothing wrong with Kansas City, but it's just a different city. It's not here. Like,
even though y'all got a Kansas City, Missouri,
that's the one you're talking about. We're just on different sides of the state. That's all. But we do things differently here, and there's a lot of parallels between, to me, someone from Minneapolis and someone from St. Louis. I don't say this about anyone else. You get us all in a room, I don't think you can tell us apart that easily. Like, that's
probably not.
You know what I mean? That same hustle, that same grind. Like, I don't know. So you fit in well here. So whenever you want to come back, we got you.
Oh yeah, you know I might. I might move in.
Right.